It's the Empowerment Perspective Podcast, hosted by Demiso Josie and Mr. Kareem Spence. Stay empowered. All right, welcome to yet another episode of the Empowerment Perspective Podcast. I go by the name of Dr. Demiso A. Josie alongside
Spence is here.
And
Jamie's here.
She doesn't know her name.
She doesn't know her name. That's a problem. So we got to get her used to being on as a co-host. We're trying to come up with a segment for Jamie. So if you guys have any suggestions for her, we'll gladly take them. It could be anything. I don't know what her expertise is outside of education. So we'll come up with a segment somehow, shape, form, or fashion for her. But on the last podcast that we had, we did a special edition one involving curbside recovery. I think it was an important topic that we needed to discuss in terms of addiction recovery. They're doing some wonderful things out there in Surfside in Ventnor. With people that are struggling with certain substance abuse. Kareem, how did you feel that podcast went?
I think it was great. I think to be able to get two perspectives, one from Ian, who actually went through the program himself and then went on to study and then be able to come back and help others. And you have Brian, who's your former student, but he still was able to, reconcile with his family, and get himself back on the right track. I think that just is awesome. It's an awesome story.
Right, Jamie, what did you get out of the podcast?
It was interesting. I love the information that he had, but I also like the fact that he said that place was only for people who were ready for help, and those that weren't ready had to go. So you go there and you know that they're there to get you on the right track.
I wish we could do that in education, right? If you're ready for help, we'll help you. If not, you gotta go. Yeah.
So you want to do like an NFL draft? We can do like a lottery where we just picking out players.
That's it, right?
Taking through different type of obstacles.
List their attributes and everything down there, and we'll make a decision. Like, you first up on the clock is Miss Roberts' class. She gets first round pick. Do it that way. No, but the episode was definitely powerful and impactful. I probably will release it multiple times because I think, there's obviously people that are out there struggling, and that's one organization that can definitely help. As I mentioned on that podcast as well, you can even reach out to us. We'll have resources for you and connect you to the right people if that is something that you are willing to do. To me, it all goes back to the why. We talk about the why and having a reason why you're doing what you're doing. So if you go through those type of programs, you have to have a strong enough why to get you through, those tough times that will lay ahead. But in the beginning of season 4, started season 4 talking to a good friend of mine, past friend of mine that we, went to high school together and kind of, I guess, reconnected on Facebook and all that stuff. And she has a wonderful story. So we started talking about her first adoption situation. And I found out in that podcast that there was another story. So I said, we're going to have you come back again and tell that story as well. So Lara, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am wonderful. Going a little stir crazy in here, stuck in the house. But we got to do what we got to do. So on that first episode of the podcast, you spoke specifically about one of your children and that experience. But you said that you have a second one as well, correct?
Yeah, we spoke about little boy number 4. He was my 4th son. And through that experience, I met my little boy number 5, my 5th son. At the time, I did not know he would be my son. I was going into it strictly looking at him as his foster parent.
Okay, so he was a foster child at first, right? And then you went through the adoption process, correct?
He was. When they called me, they asked me if I was willing to take a foster that they believed would be a few weeks, maybe a month at the max.
Got you. And this was from the same place that you saw your first one?
So my first son, Daniel, was adopted. He lived at where I work, which was a Voorhees pediatric facility. This little boy, number 5, I'll call him until we get to his name. They were going to admit him to where I work. Where I worked. I don't work there anymore. And we were not taking admissions at that stage because we had 3 patients with the coronavirus.
Wait a minute, time out.
This is like now? I thought we was going back like 3-4 months ago. You talking about like yesterday?
No, this was 4 years ago. So
Wow.
this was a different strain of corona, but we had 3 patients with it, a different strain. So we were not taking admissions because of that virus in our building. So because we weren't taking admissions, they reached out to me, who had just adopted or was in the process of adopting a child through the foster system. I worked there. They knew I wasn't afraid of special needs or anything infectious. So they, on a whim, reached out to me to see if I would foster him.
So then you go back through this process again. You know, you go back to your family and your sons again and have this conversation again. I guess explain that process as well.
So, okay, so this time around, I didn't ask anybody. I was actually in the mall. I was in American Eagle returning Christmas gifts, and I answered the phone. It said DCP&P. I thought it was some loose end we had to tie up before adoption with Daniel, which was about 3 weeks away. So I answered the phone. It was my my home resource person. And she started asking me a bunch of questions about, does this member of the family have this? Does this member of the family have that? And I was really confused. I thought maybe she was doing some paperwork to get ready for adoption. And then she said, okay, well, the reason why I'm asking you all this is we have this baby who is ready to leave the hospital, and we don't have anywhere to put this baby. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What are you asking? They're like, well, we're asking if you'll take a foster for a few weeks, maybe a month. And I said, no, I don't want to be a foster parent. You know, I became a foster parent for Daniel because I knew it was an open and closed case. I knew that I was going to foster him for the time period that I was supposed to foster him legally before we started the adoption process. And it was an open and shut. I was going to be his mom. You know, I wouldn't have to deal with back and forth and all that. And then she said, no, really? And I stopped for 1 second. And I said, in my own mind, I said, if someone would have said yes when they got the phone call about my son, Daniel, then he would not have had to go through 2 heart surgeries completely by himself. He wouldn't have had to go through all the other trials and tribulations of living in a hospital for 2 years by himself with no one to love him. So I said, you know what? I take that back. You said it's temporary? She said, yep, it's temporary. I said, okay, bring the baby over. At this point in time, I didn't know the sex. I didn't know the weight. I didn't know anything other than there was a baby coming over that was leaving the hospital.
Green, you look like you have a perplexed look on your face the whole time she was talking.
I got, you know, I'm petty, right? So I'm pretty sure if I would have seen the call and I didn't want to answer, I would have went right to Cinnabon and just like swipe right and not even pick up the phone. I can tell you that now, because Jamie's shaking her head like, no, well, yeah, that's the real. This is who I am. I'm going to swipe right. Give me a Cinnabon, and not going to think 2 things about it. Or if I do start to feel bad, I'm gonna get a double Cinnabon with extra icing to cure me feeling bad.
Something wrong with you, man. Something really wrong with you. So, Lara, I want to get to, I guess, the reason why you're, I wouldn't say, for lack of a better word, your heart is so big. Like, where did that come from? Have you always been that way in terms of wanting to care for people?
So I've always considered myself the same person I am now. I don't look at myself as having a big heart. I just kind of look at myself as doing something that I would expect anyone. You know, that's a little naive, but it's just who I am. So I guess, yeah, I've always been that way.
Kareem's not doing that. I'm telling you that.
Right. I am not. Listen, so, I'm going to give me a Cinnabon and maybe a pretzel. I'm not act like the phone call never came through.
So without getting into any specifics or names, my a family member of mine was in a car accident, and a very young member of our family was disabled due to that car accident. And I think that opened my heart to the field of anything special needs, and that these children and adults and individuals deserve just as much kindness, love, and caring as the rest of us. And because these little ones have something that's not perfect about them, everybody passes them by, and that's unacceptable to me.
Gotcha. Talk about the dynamics of the family unit when he first came home to live with you guys. I know you expressed in the first one that everyone had open arms and things of that nature. Was it the same experience with this one as well?
It was not. So I pretty much just said, let's do that. Let's do this. I'm your tool. I'm going to do what you need me to do. And didn't really ask anybody. So everybody kind of came home from work and school and everything they were doing and saw this baby, this tiny 5-pound baby, and wanted to know what I was doing. And I just said, this is we're fostering this baby. And then the questions started. Well, I'm attached to this child and it's going to go away. And these were my boys. I don't even want to hold him. I don't want to look at him. I don't, this is all you, because I can't get attached to this baby and then it goes away. So the first few weeks were interesting, let's put it that way. And then slowly but surely, you saw the hearts in my boys come out, and I would come home from work and they'd be snuggling. The baby would be sleeping on their chest, and I had my older son Rhett, who's 20 now. He was Googling how to help a newborn through drug withdrawal, because he was withdrawing as well. So they all started to slowly take to him, but I think all of us were a little guarded still, knowing that he could go back to where he came from as quickly as he came.
It's really interesting. So now that your son is in the house, obviously there's some medical concerns and things of that nature. Was the birth parents involved as much as the other one, or not at all?
They were. They're drug addicts, and not a very good living condition. So he wasn't going to live back with them at that point in time, but they were permitted to go to any doctor's appointment that he had. And what Dyfus did not disclose to me when I was taking him to these doctor's appointments is that I pretty much was being fed to the wolves when I walked into the doctor's appointment, and there's 5 members of this child's family there, and just me. Walked up, took the baby carrier from me, walked away. It was like I'm kind of fending for myself there. So that only happened for the first few doctor's appointments, and then it got old. So they were involved, but they didn't want to uphold their end of the bargain to get him back, which was drug counseling, in-house rehab.
Gotcha. I was trying to figure out what the point of them doing that was. I mean, it obviously you got them back, right? And I don't understand what their purpose was. My assumption is that the baby probably was taken away from them because of the situation, and that's why the baby was in that situation.
Yeah. So mom tested positive for a lot of drugs at a 6-month doctor's appointment, and Dyfus was immediately called in. Child wasn't born yet. At 7 months, we were more positive for drugs, and it kind of went on like that. Every appointment she went to, she was tested, and it was continuously not a good situation. So Dyfus knew as soon as the child was born that they were involved.
That's crazy.
Very interesting. I mean, my thought process would be to, let's arrest this woman so that she can dry out in jail while she finishes out her pregnancy. But that didn't happen. So, I mean, there's nothing I can do about that.
So, Misa, we talked about it, the last podcast, and we talked about the ego. And a lot of times when you have parents that are looking at Lara as she to blame, like she's a problem, like it's her fault that the baby is no longer in the home, not taking responsibility or even being accountable for the things that they've done from probably 3 months all the way through the birth. So if the mother would have did what she was supposed to do, which was to follow every step that Dyfus was asking her to take, which is to get the counseling and be able to stay clean, then it's a possibility that they could have been able to keep the baby. But because they let their ego get the best of them, and they thought that, this can't happen to me, or anybody gonna take my baby. Being petty, like anybody gonna take my baby. Now what happens is that they are causing so much harm to a particular baby or baby father.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's one of the hardest things, I guess, in life for people to do is admit that they're wrong and try to fix, the thing, whatever it is that they did was wrong.
That very first doctor's appointment that I walked into, all this family member, the grandmother walked up and stuck her finger right on my nose, and she said, "I just want you to know that we're not happy about this." And I said, "I'm sorry." And she said, "We're not happy about this." I said, "Well, who's we?" And she said, "The family. We can't stand that you have our baby and you don't know what you're doing." And I said, well, listen, I said, "I apologize that you're going through this situation." I said, "But all I am is the person that said, yes, I'll help. That's it. I'm just here to help."
So I know his rules when it comes to like being respectable to like elderly and kids, but I don't know if I have it in me for somebody to walk up and take their finger and put it on my nose and me for not to respond. See, I don't know if I'm built like that. Laura's built like that. I don't know if I'm built like that. I just may lose it, and you may be a whole lot of brawl inside the doctor's office.
You don't remember that time that a certain administrator had his finger in your face when telling you you need to go to this meeting?
Man, listen, it was tough. Like it took 3 or 4 bottles of poppy wine to be able to get my mind right. But it was tough. That's not an easy thing. It's tough. I don't know how Lara got to that appointment, and 3 more like it. I don't know.
Jamie, you think he would be able to walk away from it?
Well, he's all about the money. So if it messes up the money, then he doesn't want to be a part of it.
We started to get personal already.
I'm not gonna mess up the money, but man, to have somebody walk up and like take their finger, you don't know where the finger been all day, and just put it on your nose, like right now and today, you get the Rona. Automatically, you get the Rona if somebody touching you like that.
There's something wrong with you. Something's
definitely is.
So, going through that particular situation, Lara, what was it within you that prevented you from losing it? And because I know I had to do the same thing.
So from the time that the baby was dropped off at my house until probably, I'm going to say about 6 months into it, I looked at the whole situation as this is my job. And everybody was like, "Well, that's, how are you being a mother to this child?" And I said, "Well, if my job is to mother a child and do it with all the love I can, then I'm going to do my job the best way I can." So I just went to it thinking I'm at work right now and I can't throw punches at work. So I'm just going to back up a little bit and just say, "Hey, I'm sorry you're going through this, but I'm just here to help."
So how did you quiet off?
I don't know. I'm just thinking I might be on the phone like and call my spouse. Like, "Listen, I need you to come so we can pop the trunk." I may have just told her, "Listen, you touch me again, I'm gonna pop the trunk," and everybody knows what that means.
Oh my goodness! The views and opinions of Kareem Spence does not directly reflect the Empowerment Perspective Group. We need to throw that out there. Lara, I know that you talked about your sons and their feeling about it, but I'm sure that there's other people that were questioning your decision. Like, how did you quiet the noise? Because I know that there's always people that are going to be critics, and you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. What was it? I guess the mental process for you in terms of quieting the outside noise.
Well, I've never been someone who cares much about negative opinions, so that helped. It's in my personality. But you do have a lot of haters. You have them come up and say, "Oh, why would you take someone else's problem?" And these are people that worked in the medical field, in the special needs medical field. Why would you take someone else's problem? Why would you do that? "Oh, you're just doing this because you're getting paid to do it." Well, listen, my family grew, so yes, I'm being compensated for that. Anybody who knows anything about DCP&P knows that you do get a stipend for each child. That stipend goes towards the child. That doesn't go for my new car or a new house. It goes to make sure that child is clothed and happy and healthy and has their car seat and their strollers and anything that they need. So my comment to everyone was, listen, I'm just doing this because this child needs someone to love them. That's it. And if you don't understand that, then you need to go sit in the corner and soul search for a little bit.
Right now, Kareem, in our profession, when we talk about state agencies, a lot of parents have a negative opinion of them. And there's times I've toed the line in my position too, and where someone might want to call the state division because of neglect or abuse and type of those type of things. And I'm always kind of back and forth just because of the perception that a lot of people have of that agency. I guess, how can we change the narrative to seeing it as something that's beneficial as opposed to something that is considered a negative thing?
I think really the best way is for those that actually had to go through that process is to be able to speak out more, and be able to tell their side of the story on how it actually helped them long term to be able to go from being in a situation that is not good, either abuse or neglect, and be able to come through it on the other side, saying that this is probably the best thing that happened for me, as well as for the parent to actually say that, you know what, this was the best thing at this particular time that was going to help my son and daughter. Because in reality, it should be all about the children. That's what the focus should be on. It's not about the adults and their ego. You want to always put a child in the best possible environment so they can grow and develop. Because if not, they're going to have all type of psychological issues that many can't come back from. But to answer your question again, I think more people who actually had to go through the system need to speak out, because there are great stories for people that went through that process, even with adoption, and went on to do some amazing things with their lives.
Got you. Jamie, how you feel about the negative stigma behind the state agencies and the work, and some people viewing it as you're taking the children away from their families?
It's hard. I think that we forget that our responsibility is to take care of children. They can't fend for themselves. So if you see something wrong and you don't try to make it right, then you're almost accountable for whatever it is that child's going through. So you have to put your own ego aside and step in when you see that something's happening that you know is not right.
Right. So I'm going to take a sort of a sidebar here within the same vein. There's times in my profession where, staff will say, I'm going to go call DCC&P because the child's being abused or whatever. From a cultural standpoint, sometimes I struggle with that, because I grew up in an environment where you did get beat and certain things were said to you. And I have to figure out, is this really a situation where they need to be involved in it? Or is this just something that is more of a cultural thing, and the kids still got clothes, food, and all those things on there? I guess start with you, Kareem. What's your perception of, I guess, that moment when we have to make a decision? Well, do I make this call or don't I make this call?
So if we're talking about abuse, one of the first steps that I'll take is actually have one of our nurses be able to look at the student to determine whether or not if it was actually caused by something other than a hand. At no time does DIFAS ever want to remove or break up a family. That's not what they're there for. They're there to actually to support a family. So before I even consider whether or not I'm going to make that phone call, because there's no coming back from it, I'm definitely going to make sure that there's clear, like without a doubt, that this child has actually been physically abused. The emotional abuse, that's something that nurses can't look at. That actually has to come, from that particular student. So for me, I'm going to have a conversation with the student. I'm going to have a conversation with the nurses, and I'm going to make a determination of whether or not the call is going to be made. A lot of times calls aren't warranted. A lot of times you can actually pick up the phone and call a parent and be like, hey, listen, this is what's happening. And then for me, what I tell them is that if I hear about it again, then I'm going to have no other choice but to make the call. So I don't want you questioning my teachers. Don't question my administrators. I'm telling you that I'm going to call myself. If you have any other questions, you can actually ask me.
Right. And I guess one of the frustrating things I hear all the time is I'm making a call, that way we're covered. I'm like, all right, are you making a call because we're covered? Or are you making this call because you truly believe that this child is being neglected?
And you want to make sure that when you get DCPP involved, that they actually are going to go to the home regardless. Rather is a verified mental abuse or verified physical abuse or neglect, they have to go out. It's going to be mandatory. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you want to make sure that you keep that relationship with that parent. You don't want to feel as though that, or a parent to feel as though that what you're doing is something like punishable because the kid came to school and said that, you know what, my mom beat me because, I don't know, I left a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the chair and you sat down. So that's the real story. That happened to me. I got popped for that.
Of course it.
Yeah.
There's so wrong with it, man.
It is.
Jamie,
But,
from a teacher standpoint, I'm sure you probably came across a similar situation. Like, what was the determining factor of whether you made that call or not? Or did you go to the guidance counselor and kind of talk to it, or administrator, and kind of talk through it before you made that call, if you were ever in that situation?
So when we're in those situations, I generally talk to child study team because of the students that I teach. And you just have to, the question is, are you calling because you think that they're going to step in and make something better in the home? Or is this something, again, that you can just call the parent yourself and try to figure it out? Once you make the call, I mean, 9 times out of 10, the parent's going to come back at you anyway, because they're going to assume that someone from the school called. So you have to make sure that whatever you're seeing is actually warranting a phone call.
Yeah, I get that. From an administrative standpoint, I get those calls all the time. It's an anonymous call. They know who called, and I'm the one. I gotta sit there and be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So, but here's the trick, right? They make you believe that it's an anonymous call, but anytime you call Spru, you have to give your name, you have to give the school, and you have to give certain other identifiable things. Now, when the caseworker goes out, and like, yeah, the call came from the school, and they would be blatantly and honest and tell the parent where the call came from. So that's why it's always in the best interest to have that conversation with the parent, so it'd be no questions.
That is true. I mean, I guess the tricky line is you call the parent, they get upset, kid goes home and gets abused or whatever. I guess that's what's the rationale behind all of that. For me, I don't know. There's hopefully more than one parent that you can have a conversation with. Like, you know, it is saying that the father is doing it, and call the mother and say that this is what's being reported, and, you know, vice versa type. But getting ahead of it, I think, is important. But it's just a tricky, I guess, line to toe based upon your job and you know, and versus what you really feel is right. There's a lot.
Now, Miso, if I could chime in for a second. Now, on the other side, when you just talk about neglect, and, you know, some parents would be thankful that you actually had the resources to connect them with the agency, because, again, they may not have food in the house. She may not, or he may not have a clue of how he's going to put food on the table. Diapers come through within, you know, 24 hours, and make sure you got a refrigerator full of food or whatever it is that you may need in your house, whether it's clothes, rather it's bedding. I remember one time they actually bought somebody air conditioning because they had a baby. And in the summertime, when it gets extremely hot, they said, you know what, you need to have this in order for this baby to be able to be in a comfortable environment. So a lot of times the agencies and what they can do is far more than what the schools can do.
Right. I just think we need to change the perspective of what these agencies do. I think they get a bad rap. I think there's a negative connotation always tied to it. Because, I mean, in the reality of the situations, there are situations obviously where families are separated, but they're just not randomly doing it. Like, there's obviously an issue there of neglect, safety, and all that stuff going on with that. So, Lara, I want to go back to you. So, how's things now? Now that everyone's kind of settled and in their place with you and your family in regards to, I guess, the transition, I guess you could say.
So everything's good. I mean, fast forward 4 years, because we were in the foster care system for just about 3 with, his name is Jace. I did rename him. I had him as an infant, and I always called him Jay, which was a shortened form of his given name by his birth mother and father. So I kind of, again, shortened it further, and his name is Jace, middle name Noah. So everything's good. He is a little fighter. He is pushing through everything that I was told medically he would not push through. So it wasn't an easy 3 years. The birth parents, although they didn't want to do what they had to do to get him back, they did try every angle to fight for him. And that was, you know, get this parent involved, and then that uncle or aunt involved. And a long story short, nobody checked out legally or background check wise. Nobody checked out to be able to take him home. Where I am with both of my children that I adopted is at the end, both parents on both sets of children voluntarily turned over their parental rights to me, which means basically they named me as the person that they wanted to be their child's mother. It was a court mediation that these both happened at, and I told both parents on years apart, I said, this is not, I did not birth this child. I have this child through you. You created this child, you birthed this child. It's not my place to take him from you. It's my place to raise him and be his mother. So I have not excluded either parent, either of the four parents from these children's lives. Obviously, they know that these children were removed from them for a reason, so they will never, ever be with the birth parents without me present. I will always be supervised. But I send them pictures all the time. They're allowed to have Skype chats with these kids. We'll go out and have dinner at Chuck E. Cheese's together so that they can know the children that they gave birth to. Basically, the rules are we are not going to confuse these children. And I have told both from day one that mommy adopted you. I'm your adopted mom. You have someone who carried you in their belly and gave birth to you. And this is that person. This is Sally, fake name, obviously. This person gave birth to you, but I'm your mommy and I'm going to raise you. So they know that I'm not going to have an 18-year-old look at me someday and know that I lied to them their whole life. These children will know they're adopted. The baby, the little guy, I don't know that cognitively he'll get there and understand what that is. But he surprises me daily, so you never know.
Yes. Before we switch gears a little bit and have a little bit of fun on here, any last words of advice for any parents that are out there that are looking to adopt someone?
Well, I said in the first one to follow your heart. If you have a nagging feeling that you want to do something, look into it. That's where this all started with me. I was dead set against adoption, but obviously my thoughts were changed where that was concerned. And special needs field is not scary. It's a lot of work, but it's not scary. And every child deserves to have your heart.
Jamie, you're shaking your head over there. I feel like that's kind of in your wheelhouse because you teach that population of students as well. Why did you decide to go into special education?
I just think that in special ed, I mean, when you teach regular ed and you teach the same lesson and you hope that everyone in the classroom gets what you're teaching, but when you are in special ed and they finally get that one thing that you maybe spent a whole month on, it's just so rewarding. It's a different feeling.
Gotcha. I want to switch gears a little bit. Lara, I think you're doing some wonderful things down there, and I think you're able to give obviously these children a loving home, and you really care for them. And what you're doing is giving them a chance at life, and a huge chance. So shout out to you for that and all the work that you're doing down with your family. Would you consider adopting more?
I would. My thing is, actually, I almost did, but then I just talked to my best friend and she adopted him. But I mean, with me, I really honestly just follow my heart. I just, this morning, getting back to something Jamie said with teaching, my Jace, he walked to the refrigerator, which unfortunately I left the gate open to the kitchen, which is a no-no. He opens the refrigerator door and he pulls out an egg and he holds it up and he goes, egg. This is a child who has polymicrogyria. The right frontal lobe of his brain is deformed. But yet he picked up an egg and he communicated to me that was an egg. And I'm like, they told me you'd never say one word. And cognitively, you would never know how to communicate with me. 4 years old and you're doing it. So yeah, I would. Would you ever consider adopting Kareem? Because he has some problems.
I do need some love. And I need some free eggs at this point too.
I don't know about adults. I haven't tried that part yet, but
he's a special case for sure. I don't know.
Absolutely. You gotta dig deep into your heart and find that little soft spot that you have for somebody that needs some eggs, preferably scrambled with cheese with some toast.
We do that too. This is a hard boiled though.
That's funny. So we're going to, on this point of the podcast, we like to switch gears. So I'm going to turn it over to Kareem. He's going to ask his infamous question of you.
Okay.
Well, it's going to be a really complex question.
Sure.
Are you allowed to go anywhere by yourself now? Because I know that if I came home and there was a new baby, first of all, I feel like something happened, like I was in a time warp. I would look around and make sure this is my house, because there's no way that I went to work 8 hours ago and I come home, it's a new baby. Something must have happened. I must have missed something. Are you allowed to go anywhere by yourself?
So, I am a single mother, and I am permitted to go anywhere I want by myself as long as I have a babysitter.
I don't know about that. I don't know. It'd be tough. I don't know. Even if I'm the kids may not allow you to go anywhere because, again, they go to school, they come home as a new baby. Like, wait, no, this is not happening again.
Yeah. Well, the boys are really, they're really loving to the babies. I call them little moms. My biological children that I birthed, they're little moms. When Daniel started school and he got on the school bus, obviously he was on the short bus, but my boys would literally walk him onto the school bus, put him down, buckle his seatbelt, and then walk off the bus. And the bus drivers were like blown away. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, they said they're little moms. They dote over these children. They make sure they're okay. They make sure, they're comfortable on the bus. My now 7-year-old, he threw up on himself on the bus one day. And my son walked right on the bus, picked him up, cuddled him. He's getting puke all over him too. And it was they just really are all for what these children do.
No, we gonna get you a blanket or something, and you can't touch me. I just can't have mucus for me. It just takes me back to a place. No, we gotta get you a poncho. We're gonna put this poncho on you, and I need you to walk in front of me just to make sure that I can keep my eye on you.
No, they're really good. Boys are good. Mom, you need to run to the store. Go ahead. Go run to the store.
So should I be feeling some kind of way that my older brother didn't walk me on the bus and make sure I was okay?
You absolutely should. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know, but it's that special kind of tough love that you need, like from an older brother, like when he takes you to the rec program at 3:00 and say, "I'll be back," and it's like 5:00, ain't nobody there. It's that special kind of love. You have to start fending for yourself. So, but Laura, would you consider yourself as being? Where did she go?
I'm here.
Oh, would you consider yourself as being petty?
Oh yeah, I can do that.
That's awesome. So, do you get mad at your friends when you have to hang out with the kids at the park and they don't want to go with you? You get mad at them? Like, what you mean you don't want to go to the park? This is what we do.
No, I just tell them we can bring wine in our sippy cups.
Oh, you about to have them kids taking? I'm a mandatory reporter. I may have to call and let them know. Unless you're drinking poppy wine. Are you drinking? What kind of wine you drinking?
Go.
You got what you drinking? Moscato? What kind of wine you drinking? You look like a Moscato type of person.
Dry red. No Moscato. I'm a dry red.
Dry red. Huh.
I'm an Italian woman. I was brought up on homemade Dago red. If it's not dry, I don't like it.
What kind of wine tastes like Kool-Aid?
Do I like Kool-Aid?
No, should wine taste like Kool-Aid? It should taste good.
No. That's not real wine.
Oh. Jamie, what kind of wine were you drinking the other day?
I
was going to say where or with who. I said, what kind of wine were you drinking?
It was actually white. I can't even remember the name. I knew it at the beginning of the night, but I couldn't remember it.
You drank that much wine that you don't remember.
We're in a tough time. We're in a tough time right now, and drinking a whole bottle of wine by itself is not a bad thing anymore. It used to be frowned upon, but now it's normal.
I was a foster parent, and I love these children. I didn't say I was perfect.
That is too funny. No, I agree with you. Well, a bottle of wine's not that bad anymore.
No.
Now, you got a problem.
Yes.
So, all right, we're going to wrap this podcast up. Lara, definitely thank you for spending the afternoon with us again, part 2.
Thanks for
as I mentioned before, continue to do the wonderful work that you're doing, not only as a mother, but as an educator. Never really got into why you chose to become an educator. So I guess I can ask, and we'll end with that kind of question. Like, why did you decide to do that?
What I have done through the course, Daniel's pretty solid. He has a heart condition and ADHD, but he's pretty solid cognitively, and everything's going good for him education wise. But Jay, I knew going into Jay that he was going to need a little extra with everything. So I had him for 3 months. I marched down to our rehab department in VPF, and I asked them, what I needed to do to help this child. And lo and behold, the director said, I have a position opening up. Do you want to come down? So I scooted on down to rehab, and I picked and probed the minds of our therapists on how to help Jay develop and grow, not only with his therapist, but how can I help him at home when he's not doing therapy? So then Jay started school, and I said, and I got an autism diagnosis right before he started school. And I kind of went back to, okay, well, how can I help him? Hold on, there's a position opening up around the corner at Kingsway Learning Center. Let me just go, and the hours are great for school-age children, because now I'm going to be there to put them on the bus and get them off the bus. I'll be home when they're on holidays and everything. So I went down to Kingsway, and now I'm in a classroom where I'm learning how to teach a child with autism. So I kind of have just moved with Jay, and with when he is at that developmental milestone, I've kind of started to move with him where I can help him grow as best I can. It might sound a little strange, but just pick a profession and stick with it, Lara. But I just kind of feel like I'm able to help him better with being in the know and being in that environment and working on it hand in hand every day. It's so much easier to bring it right home and just continue going through it with Jay while we're home.
I think you picked a lifestyle and a purpose and shaped your career around that, which I think is a very powerful thing to do, and some things that we always talk about on our podcast. And again, it goes back to the why and really defining the reason why you do certain things. And then once you have that why in place, then everything else revolves around those type of things. So I wish more people would do that with their careers, instead of letting their careers kind of drive and dictate their lifestyles and the things that they're into.
My passion is my children, so however I can help them grow is where I'm at.
Jamie, any last words for, let's say, any advice for any teachers that are interested into teaching special education?
Special ed is definitely a good certification to have now, and it's just it's not the day-by-day things that you're going to see. It's what you see in 2 weeks, in a month. It's just very rewarding. It's something that I would definitely recommend teachers trying.
Awesome. Spencer, any last words?
Yes. If you guys are looking for me to adopt, don't work. All my calls are being forwarded to Laura, so she can have as many as she like. She definitely has a heart for this. Don't call me, because again, I'm not going to the park. I'm done coaching. I don't want anything to do except if it's going to be poppy wine. That's about it. That's the only thing I'm doing right now in 2020. It's all about the poppy wine.
It's all poppy wine. Shout out to Poppy Wine. Hopefully we get a sponsorship out of this. We've been mentioning you a lot on this podcast. Well, Kareem, I should say that.
Eventually, if we mention it enough, they're going to recognize that somebody's actually out there drinking this wine. We need to sponsor them.
Where is it from? You need to look at the bottle and see where it's from.
Chile.
Now, see, listen, this is exactly why. It's exactly why she don't remember nothing. She can't remember exactly what kind of wine she had, but she knows exactly where it came from. She may have a glass right in front of her, right? She probably has a bottle as we speak, just looking at it.
That was pretty impressive. There was no hesitation or nothing.
No. She didn't have to Google or nothing. She's like, yeah, Chili, that's where it's from.
That's too funny. Why these fools go and drink the rest of their wine? I want to give you everybody that's been following us. We've been putting a lot of content out recently because we have nothing else to do. So we figured we'd give you more information on a variety of topics. We don't forget, we had our Nicole Simone and about her her exercise program for when you are stuck in the house. So that's out there. We'll be dropping actually before this podcast. So you should, if you're watching this, you should go back and watch and take a look at that. We're talking to a bunch of authors coming up soon, some other motivational speakers coming out. So, we're just going to keep grinding and doing our thing. And again, now's the time for you to plan, make your assessments, prepare for the back end of this thing, because, the world's going to change, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you. You need to figure out what your gift is and try to apply it in the ways that you see fit. So until next time, stay empowered.